Hi, and welcome to this episode that's going to cover some hard topics. So if you're ready to be empowered to, number one, choose the way you think, recognize that feelings are not facts. They're things that you can use to your own advantage to recognize that you can control the way you react in your behavior to a certain situation. And number three, taking ownership for everything. Because being responsible for something puts you on the pedestal to being in the advantage of something. Acknowledging that time is a precious resource and knowing what to do with these things are all themes that I'm talking about with my guest today, Chris Moon. He's an international motivational speaker who has spent more than 2 decades inspiring the audiences across the world, from school children to CEOs, to step beyond what they thought was possible. As a former British Army officer trained at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, Chris later worked clearing landmines for humanitarian missions in Africa and Asia. In 1995, while supervising a mine clearance operation in Mozambique, he stepped on a landmine and lost his lower arm and leg. What happened next is nothing sort of extraordinary. Less than a year after leaving hospital, Chris completed the London Marathon. He went on to becoming the world's first amputee ultra-distance runner, completing some of the world's toughest races known on Earth, including the Marathon des Sables and the Badwater Ultramarathon. Now, Chris is also one of the few Westerners to survive being taken prisoner by the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. And today, he uses these life experiences to help individuals and organizations rethink their limits, lead through uncertainty, and perform at their best. He's the author of the inspiring memoir, One Step Beyond, a powerful story of determination, humor, and the incredible resilience of the human experience. So if you're ready to find out about his memorable life journey, then here it is. Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast. But before I begin, I wanted to quickly ask you a personal favor. If you're not yet subscribed to the SMARTA Podcast or are not following the show, please could you do so now? Because it's what keeps improving the podcast. And in return, I promise you that I have a better lineup of guests every Monday so you can grow smarter with me. Now on with the show. Chris Moon, are you ready to get smarter?
I'm ready.
Then let's go right in. I don't even know where to start. Your story really touched me, especially because you've worn a lot of hats. And I really think the best place to start is just if you can talk directly with the person listening right now. If you had off the top of your mind 3 key takeaways for the person listening today to take us through the end of the episode, what would they be?
The first one is recognize that feelings are not facts. Be totally realistic. Second one, we choose the way we think. This is the most important psychological discovery ever, and the way we think determines how we feel. And the third thing, take ownership, take responsibility for everything, because then that puts you in a position where you can compel your circumstances rather than be compelled by the circumstances around you.
I'm actually really glad you started off with feelings, because I was just reading an article the other day saying that our physical emotions let us know more than 90 seconds to experience a type of emotion, a type of feeling. And then further on, we voluntarily choose to stay mad, to stay disappointed, to stay worried. So I love the fact that you choose the way we think. And I completely agree with you. I want to take you now into the world of survivor mindset, because you've experienced situations that most of us can hardly even imagine. And particularly after the landmine explosion in Mozambique, I want to ask you, Chris, what was going through in your mind in those first critical moments that made you get out of it and survive?
When I was blown up, I was doing the least dangerous thing I ever did. I was walking in a safe area where all the landmines had been removed. My background at that time was leading large teams in high-risk operations in hazardous areas. As I walked back up the cleared lane, something felt wrong. And I still remember this in the present tense. it felt as if something vile and evil was coming towards me. I took 3 steps and then I heard the loudest bang I've ever heard. I stepped on a device it wasn't possible for my guys to locate. And I remember the whole thing in the present tense. I didn't pass out. We had very good medical training. I treated myself in the minefield. That was why I survived the first bit. And then I was told I'd be in hospital probably 5 to 6 months in South Africa. I was actually there 3.5 weeks because I worked really hard at getting better. And, I had a sense of humor. When we can laugh at the irony of life, then it puts us in a place where we heal faster and we recover faster, and it is our greatest coping mechanism.
And actually, less than a year after leaving the hospital, you ran the London Marathon. So what mindset allowed you to move so quickly, apart from the humor that you've got, to actually make that an achievement?
Well, our most precious resource in life is time. And we need to use our time wisely. And by that, I mean, enjoy the journey in life. Take those special moments to look at the trees, to enjoy the sound of laughter, to sit and really appreciate what we have in life. And I was determined to do it less than a year after leaving hospital, because I just knew that if I did, I would be able to raise a lot of money for the charities that I was involved with. And we did. We raised a very large amount of money that went to help people with disabilities in Cambodia. So I was very driven to do it. But what's interesting now is that prosthetics have advanced so much that the challenges that I had learning to run again, now prosthetics are so much better that it would be so much easier. And I would say, it required a huge amount of effort, confidence and self-belief and endurance to do it then, because all the muscles I'd ever had wasted during the 10 days I was flat on my back in intensive care. So I had so much to rebuild, and I was starting from, my story is not that of somebody who's naturally been good at a sport and then been coached to be brilliant. My story is how you repeatedly climb out of a deep, dark hole from where there is no hope. First thing to do is actually believe in yourself. And then when you set your big, scary goals, you work out how you're going to get there. And you will fall over on the way. I learned to run by falling over. So don't be afraid of falling over and failing. The important thing is that we keep on getting up and learn from it. And so now prosthetics are just so much better than they were.
And I'm curious, Chris, to see if we flip this scenario to teenagers, to the generation now of my age that get a lot of help or a lot of things done by the family or by parents. What's your mindset? What's your output on what you would recommend this new generation to approach their next chapter in life?
It's great to accept help. Accepting help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, but at the same time, learn to paddle your own canoe, because nobody can live your life for you, and be as independent as you can and take responsibility for everything, because whatever happens to us, if we take responsibility for us, it puts us in a position where we can then change the situation if we want to. But if we're blaming everybody else and not taking responsibility, then we become helpless and more helpless. So take responsibility, take ownership, and don't be afraid to fail, but learn. And life is all about learning. Get out there and just make the best of your life.
Yeah, be a lifelong learner. And about this, I think I can link it on to resilience, because you often speak about human performance in extreme situations. So what would one of your biggest misconceptions be about the world of resilience?
I think people don't necessarily understand that resilience is more complex than we think. And you can't just tell someone to be resilient. If you're having a really tough time, then it's not particularly helpful for someone to say to you, oh, you should be more resilient. And actually, what you need to do is this. Now, there are some things that you can do that I know work. And I've been speaking now for 30 years and helping people be more resilient, helping people challenge the things that limit us. Because if you think about it, the whole point of life is about rising above the things that drag us down. So don't be defeated, and keep that spirit and determination to keep on getting up. And in my own case, I've experienced a lot of badness in life. Mary's talked about executing us 7 times, managed to persuade them not to. And each of those occasions it was harder and harder to not give up. And you got to have that determination to keep going. And what I would say to everybody is focus on your reasons for doing what you do, for doing what you want to do. The more reasons we can find, the happier we will be, the healthier we will be. Find your reasons for living. Focus on your reasons for living. Find them, focus on them, recognize that we can all spread so much sunshine into somebody else's life. And probably not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, I think it's important to remember how much our parents do for us and how they may be irritating on occasions, but they probably do want the best for us. There's a wonderful quote from Mark Twain. And he said, when I was 19, I thought my father was a complete idiot. By the time I was 23, I was surprised how much he'd learned. So do learn from the wisdom of others. Pursue wisdom. In my training company, we have three principles: raw performance, resilience, accountability, and wisdom. Pursue those 3 things.
I'm really curious because you talk about resilience so much. If you were to translate your word and your definition to an 8-year-old so that they can understand how they can start practicing resilience, how would you define it?
Say to an 8-year-old, we need to understand that life is not always fair. Sometimes things that happen and are going on in the world that we wish weren't. But life is all about actually facing reality and making the best of it and developing, because we are all learning all the time. We're all a work in progress. And it's about developing the ability to get up when we fall over, to bounce back when we fall down. And when we experience things that distress us, it's about moving on from that place of distress and upset and focusing on what we have. Worry is one of the greatest ills of the current times, and we all worry about things we shouldn't worry about. So don't worry. Don't focus on your fear. Be thankful for what you have and develop the determination to not give up and not get upset about things, because there's no point in getting upset about things and taking things personally. Let's find a way to move on, find a way to not get stuck there, but just to say, and you can do simple things like think of things you have to be thankful for. And I always say to people, be thankful for your eyes, be thankful for your arms and legs. I choose to be even more thankful now for my left arm and my left leg than I was before. And that's the way I choose to look at it. I've got a choice every day. Will I focus on what I don't have and what is difficult? Or will I focus on what I do have and what I'm thankful for? I choose to be thankful. I choose to be constructive in the way that I look at it. And I choose to say, hey, I'm not the center of the universe. I'll be involved with other people and other issues in life. It's not all about me. CBN stuff.
And speaking about worry, I was just talking to this great guy I just had on my podcast, Ashley Leeds. And he was just talking about how all of this generation, his kids and everyone my age, are just so centered on the things that could go wrong rather than the best possible outcome. It's about flipping your mindset, like you just said, to what's the worst that can happen to what's the best that can happen out of a situation, and then just see how you can grow from there. Because you touch upon adversity and how it's often a very powerful tool, I'd like to ask you, how did those extreme experiences actually shape the way you now see life and success? Has it changed? Is it a different approach? Or
Well, I think there are only some things you can learn by experience, and I'm privileged to have had some very, very extreme experiences, and that's taught me an awful lot. And the first thing is choose the way you think, But also don't focus on your fears, because if we focus on our fears, it's almost like negative goal setting. It makes it far more likely that it will happen. And there's also something called target fixation. This was identified in the Second World War amongst pilots who were bombing tanks. And quite often the pilot was so fixated on the tank that he dropped the bomb successfully and then crashed the plane into it. And that's called target fixation, because you're so fixed on the target. Another example of where this would happen is motorcyclists. Motorcycles go where you look. So if you're driving along and you think, oh, I'm going a bit fast, there's a lamppost there. Oh, no, look at the lamppost. And then you hit it. So you've got to learn to see beyond the problem, not fix. And there was a simple drill they developed for the pilots, which is once they acquired a target, they went through a voice procedure. Target acquired, bombs away, eyes off target, look up, pull up. That simple. It was that simple to stop them doing it. But if you think about it, you're then doing an audible command. And these could be very helpful. When we were carrying out high-risk procedures, we would talk through them. It's the same technique that police drivers use. They are trained. I was an officer in military police, so I've done driver training. And you are trained to give a running commentary on what you see on the road, where the vehicle is, and then you're 100% focused where you are. So be focused where you are, and the audible talk through then becomes, when you're practiced, an internal dialogue in your head. But it's a really great way to actually be 100% where we are and focused, because that's what we need to do. I spent some time with Native Americans, and it was fascinating hearing their spiritual view of the world. And they said that if you have the experiences that I've had on many occasions of nearly dying, part of your soul is trapped in the past and you're not 100% in the present. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things, because you can say that explains trauma. You know, that is quite a good way of explaining what happens with post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I haven't had it, and the reason I haven't had it is because I do the work. Firstly, I'm totally realistic. You've got to see reality. And I frequently, if I'm in a difficult situation, ask this question: what is it I don't want to hear about this situation? Obviously, when I lost my arm and leg and I asked that question, the first thing I thought was, it's not going to grow back. So you have to get used to this. When I got taken by the Khmer Rouge, when we were first taken prisoner, I said to myself, right, what is it you don't want to hear about this? You have no control. You do not know how long you are going to be held prisoner. This could be forever. So don't put a line on where you think you're going to get out, because you can't. You've got to be totally realistic and now put all of the effort into persuading them to release us. And it wasn't just one thing that I did. It was a continual thing. So be aware of the principles of marginal gain. And that is that you do everything just that little better, just a few % better, and that all adds up to have a big effect. And everything I did was about moving us towards a place where I could get a guarantee of security and be released. But it was everything that I did during the days that we were held. It wasn't just one thing or one negotiation. It was everything, ranging from understanding how they thought and their ideals and their view of the world. Because I did know one thing: if they killed me, they wouldn't think they were doing a bad thing. So you can't think like you think. You have to learn how they think and then communicate in a way that they understand. So what would I say by way of summary? See reality, be totally realistic. Don't give in to the feelings of fear. Don't focus on the fear. See beyond it, work out where you want to go, and then put all of your effort into getting there. And once we do that, all of the fear and worry goes, because we'll be so focused on action. And recognize that we all have experiences from the past that can drag us down. So leave them there or resolve them, but don't let them stop us being in the present. So we need to be 100% where we are. And that is what being alive is really about. And you could make a comparison with mindfulness here, that people say your one mindfulness is about being absolutely in the present and aware of everything that's happening around us. And if we do that, it kind of slows time down.
So true. I'm really interested to see, and I want to ask you now about completing your marathon, because you talked to me about how important that inner dialogue is. Talking to yourself actually helps you visualize your outcome, and not only visualize it, but actually achieve it. I'm sure you've seen in the marathon a lot of people that couldn't get past the finish line. If there's a difference in those that did and those that don't, and if you think that's related to the inner dialogue.
One of the things I noticed in what I believe to be the world's toughest race, that is Badwater, and it takes place in Death Valley at the hottest time of year. It's 135 miles. And what I've noticed is that of the athletes who don't finish it, something happens because your body is right on the limit. So if you get unwell, for example, if you throw up, it's very hard to then replace the fluid. But it's actually in that race very noticeable that, in my experience, the people who don't go the distance are not always the most sick, not always the most unfit, not always the most injured. It's the people who do not believe they can go the distance. And once they lose that belief, they're out of the race. So you've got to believe you can go the distance in the race of life.
And about the younger generation, to stoop down to my level again, about comfort zone, how would you say one can practice experiencing new opportunities, looking for new possibilities, new challenges, and constantly looking to improve at something that maybe they're scared at?
Feel the fear and do it anyway. And once you start doing it, the fear usually goes, but don't be motivated by fear. And what I mean by that is we should do nothing through fear. What does that mean? That means don't think, oh, I'm not going to do that because I might not be able to do it or I might fail. Don't worry about it. And, in the race of life, it doesn't matter how fast you run as long as you keep going. So don't compare yourself to other people. And the more you practice getting out of your comfort zone, the easier it gets. So keep practicing. And so what's the worst thing that can happen? Most of the time, it's not going to be as bad as we think. And so it comes back to not focusing on fear, moving beyond it and just saying, well, I'll go and give that a go. And don't get nervous. Just there's one technique I'll give you now for anybody who does have anxiety about certain things. And this helps a lot of people. So what you do is you take a deep breath. You hold it, and then gently through your fingertips, you flick out all the negative emotions, and you say 3 words: cool, calm, confident. So breathe in, hold it, say 3 words: cool, calm, confident. And you do that 3 times. Do it again.
Cool, calm, confident.
Feel better?
Yeah.
And
it forces you to focus in the present and stop your mind wandering from what ifs, the future, or the past.
Yeah, and don't do the if onlys, because if we keep thinking if only this, if only that, it puts us in the state of a victim.
Yeah. And about all of your humanitarian work and ultramarathons, I'm just curious to know, Chris, what gets you up in the morning? What motivates you?
A determination to make the best of life. I've got lots of reasons to get up, get in my office. I love what I do. Speak at events around the world, issues of resilience, change. I help people make the best of their lives. And so I'm really driven to do that. And I run leadership courses and I do a lot of training as well. So for me, one of the things that really drives me is I have a deep commitment to help people rise above the things that drag them down and make the best of their lives. And so I improve individual and team performance. And that drives me to make the best of life.
If I may, I want to bring you to your first book, One Step Beyond, because you share your life and it's really amazing. So my question is, are you working on something new at the moment, a new editorial project?
I am working on another book about resilience. because there's lots written about resilience, but I want to share my perspective because I know it works. All of these techniques work as long as we do. So as long as we practice them, they will help us. And so people don't need to suffer. And so, yeah, I need to do that in the next month, actually. I'm on the case.
What's your core message that you wish to convey from One Step and Beyond and now your new project? Are they different, or is it the central message?
No, with this is much more about actually, if you're having a tough time, you can get through it. And these are some experiences, and this is how you can use the experience in very practical steps to actually take control of our thinking. Because we also need to recognize that we have, I call it a neural pathway. It's like a short circuit in our brain. So, for example, when I grew up and I was a child, if I did something wrong, my mum would call me Christopher. So if I get called Christopher now, I immediately for a split second think, oh dear, what have I done wrong? And that's just conditioning. And we all have things like that. And sometimes it can be people not being able to accept appreciation. It can be people not actually being able to, for example, go into the corner of a room because they've seen a spider there. It can be anything. But the real issue is actually, these are techniques you can use to get beyond it.
Chris Moon, I've got 4 questions for the SMARTA Podcast traditions. The first one is where I ask my last guest to leave a question for the next one. And so in this case, Meredith Elliott Powell left you the question, what is the most important thing that we can do to build resilience?
Okay, the first thing in our journey to build resilience is develop a determination not to give up. And then see beyond the emotion. Be 100% in the present and find ways to focus on what we have and what we can do, and then think back to an experience in life where you did something that, for example, made you feel proud, where you did something that you didn't think you could do. It could be as simple as I was able to run 2 miles when I didn't think I could. You think back to that, and then you think, well, if I could do 2 miles, I can do more than that. And then you'll find that gradually you can, and you build up. So it's what I would call foundation experiences. You look back to something you've dealt with in life where you were able to be resilient, and you find 4 or 5 of them, and you said, well, if I got through that, I can get through this. And for each of us, they'll be different. Think back to experiences where you got through something, thought, well, if I did that, I can do this. And the more of them we can find, the better we'll be. And then grow our determination. Determination is a skill that we can learn, and just keep on getting up. And I've got good news for everyone. I used to think that you had to get up one more time than you fall over, but that's not true. The good news is you only have to get up the same number of times as you fall over.
And with this, I want to link into the world of books and literature. I've got my favorite question personally to ask you, what would be the top 2 books that change your perspective through which you view life with?
I think probably the book that I think is well worth everyone reading, because it's beautifully written, but also such extreme experience. And it's called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's written by Viktor Frankl. So it's all about search for meaning. And he was an extraordinary man. He was a psychiatrist, a young psychiatrist. And when the Nazis came to power in Germany, he was a Jew, and he was put in a concentration camp. And he survived the whole war. In one camp, they killed everybody except him and one other person, and they only stayed alive because they hid in the roof of one of the buildings. So he's seen more death than we can ever imagine. And his book describes how he coped with it, and it also shows that if we can do something that will help other people, that will add value and meaning to our own existence.
And to take you back in time to when you were my age at 18, if there was one advice that you would like to carry on through, what would you say yourself if you can talk to your younger self again?
Don't take things personally. Don't worry. get out there, be confident, live life, and don't let people drag you down.
And I think I'll take those into university when I start in September, because you meet a lot of new faces, a lot of new opportunities, and with them, a lot of people that maybe you don't get along with, and you have to learn to rule out and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. I think spreading a bit of sunshine and kindness is the most important thing we can do, unless you're next to a psychopath, in which case move, because it's generally given back. But, you're not going to get on with everyone in the world. Don't find a way to fall out with people. I have a philosophy in life: don't fight with pigs, because you get dirty and they like it.
Yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah. And Chris, I started the episode with you talking directly with the person listening. So if you can do that again, what end message would you like to leave them with?
Laugh at the irony of life. Don't compare yourself to others. Make the best of life. Spread sunshine and kindness. Don't hang around with psychopaths. Yeah. Most importantly, find things that make you happy. Don't do things you hate. And remember, there's a place in the world for everyone. It's just about getting out there and finding it.
So true. I cannot agree more. Chris, thank you so much for being on the SMARTA podcast.
Thank you, Sonia. And it's been my pleasure, and very best wishes, and thanks to everyone who's listening. Make the best of life.
If you liked Chris Boone's episode, make sure to stay tuned to what he's doing up next, because he's always on the step on something remarkable. Remember that determination is a skill that you can develop. You are capable of seeing beyond the emotion, because they're not facts. They're just in your mind. And to realize that actually you can use a situation in high stakes when everyone is stressed about a problem for you to come through as a new employee that has that recent new solution. And as usual, if you're not yet subscribed to the SMARTA Podcast, please do so right now and double check that you've got your notifications turned on, and rate this episode podcast 5 stars if you learn anything new, because it's what keeps helping me grow the show. So with that being said, if no one told you this today, I want to be the first to tell you that I truly believe in your ability to create the life of your dreams. I'm Sonia Marta. I can't wait to see you here next Monday.